The first thing I did after my rebirth was to send someone to find Lu Ji, who at that time was not yet a eunuch. The once formidable ninth prince now lay prostrate at my feet, his wolf-like gaze fixed on me as if he intended to flay my skin, tear my bones, and devour me whole. I had once despised and hated him, yet now he was all I had left. "Is my sister feeling unwell?" A soft inquiry snapped me back to consciousness. That familiar voice. I tore myself free from the sticky darkness like a tidal wave, eyes snapping open, murderous intent radiating from me. A slightly worried youth shook his head gently at me. A large, spreading wine stain staining the collar of his apricot yellow crown prince's robe. Even if my bones were ground to dust, I would never forget that face. Xing Yuan, the younger brother I cherished above all else. As if he were my own eyes. The agony of being pierced by countless arrows at his command still sent shivers down my spine. I lowered my head. The intricate court robes were immaculately fitted. The rare, flowing cloud suzhou embroidery, a masterpiece seldom seen in this world. When I looked up again, the third prince of Xia, Qi Qiu, was panting heavily, an empty wine cup still raised in his hand. I remember this banquet of treachery. The 24th year of Yongcheng. How could this be? Could it be that the treacherous heavens have granted me a second chance? The third prince slammed his cup onto the table, its thud snapping me from my thoughts. "They say your crown prince and eldest princess share a deep sibling bond," he slurred, squinting drunkenly. "But look at them now, to me. It seems more like an elder sister acting as a mother. A fledgling bird. All talk and no action. Waiting for a woman to step in?" Xing Yuan's face drained instantly. "Your Highness jests," I replied, rising with a sweep of my sleeve. I fixed him with a steady gaze. Imperial bonds are precious indeed. Xia's reputation for iron discipline breeds misunderstandings, hardly surprising. Before he could respond, I pressed on. "This is a ceremonial banquet. What need is there for any stepping forward?" The third prince drank to his heart's content. Yet he did little to dampen the festive mood. In the 24th year of Yongcheng, princes from 6 nations visited Yunchuan Kingdom, ostensibly for marriage alliances. Their true ambitions were wolfish. With the old emperor of Xia nearing his end, the third prince urgently sought power. After repeatedly being rejected in his marriage proposals to me, he publicly humiliated Xing Yuan, a seemingly easy target to embarrass Yunchuan Kingdom. In my past life, I cherished my brother above all else. I flung a cup of wine back at him. After the banquet ended, my father confined me to my quarters for half a year. The connections and influence I had painstakingly built were squandered in that time, ultimately benefiting others. Given another chance, I refused to repeat that mistake. Narrowing my eyes, I signaled to the female attendant and dancers beside me, whispering instructions. The attendant complied, and soon several jars of fine wine were brought forth. The music and dancing quietly overshadowed the earlier incident. I gestured invitingly. "Fine wine for fine company, this is my treasured Liuli Zue. Aged for years. Care to try?" The maid held the wine cup high. The third prince, mostly sobered, took the cup and drained it in one gulp. Saving face. "Fine wine indeed," I murmured, nodding leisurely toward him. "But do not overindulge." After dismissing the third prince, I returned to my seat. Yet my mind remained unsettled. All those memories, were they but a fleeting dream? Or echoes of past lives? "Sister?" I had barely sat down when I snapped back to attention, looking at Xing Yuan. Xing Yuan gave a shy smile. "Thank you, sister, for saving me. Earlier, I noticed you looked unwell. Are you feeling unwell?" I hummed an acknowledgement without answering, merely picking up a piece of sweet potato. Before I could bring it to my mouth, Xing Yuan spoke again. Did I not hear you dislike sweet potatoes?" The taste is passable. Noticing my coolness, Xing Yuan grew cautious and fell silent. After 2 bites, I set my chopsticks down. Boring. Not even tasty. Only freaks like Lu Ji would enjoy this. I'm a eunuch. I know. If your highness knows. Why dress like this to humiliate me? The 9,000 years. Who holds the power of life and death? Surely doesn't think me a 3-year-old fool to be toyed with? Your highness. Are you offering yourself in exchange? Ha. That depends entirely on whether His Excellency is willing. I slipped off my final undergarment, staring expressionless at the figure before me, then suddenly smiled. In the flickering candlelight, my voice spilled out, deep, resonant, and pleasing to the ear. My almond-shaped eyes held a hint of intoxication, their gaze threaded with desire. Yet beneath the surface, the depths of my dark pupils burned with a wild, knife-sharp intensity. Your Highness, I said. I am a eunuch. He repeated the words, his barely noticeable Adam's apple sliding up and down. Then, without warning, he pressed his mouth firmly against my neck. I jolted awake from the dream, instinctively touching my throat. In my past life, that bite had broken the skin, leaving a scab. Before it healed, Lu Ji loved to repeatedly stroke it, never tiring of it. But now, the skin here remained smooth. Perhaps dreaming of Lu Ji had caused an inexplicable itch to flicker across the tender flesh. It was now the summer of the 24th year of Yongchang. By my reckoning, Lu Ji had been sold into the palace around this time, becoming a eunuch by accident. I massaged my temples, sighed, and summoned the maid Chen Tao. My head aches, I said. Dispatch someone to find a person for me. Quickly. Chen Tao brought a cup of tea, adjusted my pillow for support, and replied, Yes, Your Highness. I'll go at once. Please drink this first. Did you have a nightmare? I took the tea and drank it in one gulp before suddenly asking, Chen Tao, what do you think of the Crown Prince? The Crown Prince? Chen Tao froze, then quickly recovered. Your Highness and the Crown Prince share a deep sibling bond. But Your Highness. Chen Tao trailed off. I usually called Xing Yuan Abai and had never before referred to him so coldly as the Crown Prince. Speak freely. I won't blame you. Chen Tao replied. Your Highness has been rather indulgent toward the Crown Prince. With Her Majesty the Empress passing so early, it was only right for Your Highness to watch over your younger brother. But the Crown Prince was bound in hair last year. It's time he became a pillar of support for our prince. I chuckled softly. Is that so? Chen Tao bowed her head, daring not to speak further. I set the teacup on the small table beside the couch and helped her up myself. Chen Tao, overwhelmed by favor, stumbled backward. Your Highness. This is unthinkable. I spared her further awkwardness and withdrew my hand. Beginning tomorrow, you shall take over Tanxiang's duties. I yawned. I am weary. You may withdraw. Chen Tao's eyes widened in astonishment and delight. Yes, Your Highness. This servant takes her leave. She arranged my bed curtains, closed the door, and slipped away quietly, lying on the bed with eyes closed. The past still haunted me relentlessly. You can guard against everything, but not against a traitor within your own household. Lu Ji became a eunuch by accident. But hadn't I also lived my entire life in a daze? Your Highness. The scout reports the person has been found, leaning against the imperial couch with my forehead propped up. I flipped through the ledgers of Fini Palace from these past years. Upon hearing this, I asked, where is he? Though Lu Ji had mentioned this time frame to me, he never revealed how he entered the palace. Chen Tao massaged my shoulders, reportedly at the Red Sleeve Pavilion. Red Sleeve Pavilion? I furrowed my brow. Go fetch him. The Red Sleeve Pavilion was the capital's largest brothel. Its reputation far-reaching. It offered both lavish pleasures and sordid indulgences, a veritable den of iniquity. I paused. Never mind. I shall go myself. Chun Tao hurriedly protested. Your Highness. You might soil your shoes. It matters not. Chun Tao looked intensely curious about who could warrant my personal visit. I closed the ledger. No wonder Lu Ji became a eunuch at 15 yet mastered the ways of the bedchamber without teaching. No wonder he sometimes flies into a rage, sneering that he's the son of a courtesan. His very blood tainted. Determined to drag me down into the mire with him. That stubborn temper of his, he trusts no one. Send someone else without explanation. And they'd likely be beaten before they could be carried back. Hongqiu Pavilion stood on Chang'an Street, the city's most bustling thoroughfare. Its architecture rivaled the palace in refinement, infused with the elegance of the southern Jiangnan region. Every 5 steps. A pavilion, every 10. A tower. At first glance, patrons reciting poetry and composing couplets seemed perfectly respectable, betraying no hint of the sordid underbelly hidden within. But after winding through 3 pavilions to the tower's heart, the stench of opulence hit me like a punch. Chun Tao whispered, Your Highness. He's in that private room on the 2nd floor. Seems he's in trouble. I arched an eyebrow and strolled toward the room. Inside the private room, I stood at the doorway as the gentle strains of me.but and Guqin flowed out. You. Come here. The third prince spoke lazily. As my footsteps drew nearer, his voice grew increasingly suggestive. You claim to be a servant? To me, you look like a woman. Otherwise, drop your pants and show me. The third prince seemed to slap something down on the table. Play with me tonight. And all this is yours. Oh. Still stubborn? Insisting I take matters into my own hands. Huh. Thud. SSSSH. The third prince sucked in a sharp breath. Cursing furiously, You're refusing the wine I offer. So you'll drink the punishment wine. Then, I heard a sharp tearing sound. The women inside screamed in alarm, and the sounds of me.but and Guqin ceased. I kicked the door open violently. The third prince's sword, poised to strike, froze midair. His face was livid, clearly having been punched. Lu Ji stared at him intently, fists clenched, not flinching as the blade swung toward him. From my angle, I clearly saw a shard of broken porcelain clenched in his fist, already cutting deep into his palm. You little wolf cub. I snorted with a mocking laugh, ordered Chun Tao to guard the doorway, and shut the door. Why is your highness so furious? Please calm down. We in Yinchuan Kingdom are unaccustomed to the southern winds, unfamiliar with your customs, and have never witnessed the third prince display such majesty. Step by step, I advanced toward the tip of the third prince's blade, its cold gleam mere inches from my face. Unflinching, I said, Why stoop to quarreling with an ignorant servant? Your highness? Though forced to sheath his blade, the third prince's fury remained unchecked. He sneered repeatedly. Princess Zhao Yang, what new charade are you performing now? His words were harsh, but I couldn't be bothered to argue. Instead, I stood silently before Lu Ji. The third prince exhaled a breath of wine fumes. His resentment toward me palpable. His veiled insults carried clear intent. That little brat dares embarrass me in public? Quite bold. Today, I'll make an example of him. I smiled sweetly at him. Red Sleeve Pavilion has countless charming beauties. Why fixate on this reluctant one? Third prince? How about this, spare me some face, and I'll have the steward select several more gentle and lovely ones for you. I stepped forward, patting the third prince's shoulder. Consider this my invitation, the third prince declared. I want only him. Where else could I find such peerless beauty? He paused, then turned to me. suddenly grinning as he playfully rubbed the spot where my hand had touched him. His breath reeked of wine. And he was indeed quite bold. Princess Zhaoyang is truly the peerless beauty of this world. How does that saying from Yunchuan Kingdom go? Snow-white skin like jade. Lips like pearls on crimson lips. The third prince said lightly. The begonia blooms before the rain. The pear blossom falls like snow. Half the spring splendor rests with Princess Zhaoyang alone. The position of third prince's consort, if the princess is willing, should naturally be given to her. In the haze of alcohol, he grew bolder, reaching out to lift my chin. Before his hand could touch me, I let out a cold laugh, all traces of warmth vanishing. Silence filled the room as I swung my hand back, landing a sharp slap across his face. You've been given face. Chi-Chio. Do you truly believe this palace dares not touch you? I stepped closer, enunciating each word deliberately, as a guest of honor. This palace has shown you courtesy. Take it. Dare to provoke me again, and I shall settle both old and new grievances with you. Chi-Chio seemed stunned by my blow. He shook his head, fury boiling within him. How dare you? You worthless thing. I flicked my hand dismissively, then turned with a sweet smile. I dare. Why wouldn't I? Try me. See if I can't crush you without a sound. Then do your royal brothers a favor by delivering your remains? Chi-Chio's rising fury choked in his throat. Should I ever see you again? I said, turning to pull Lu Shi close, my eyes cold as ice. I guarantee you'll enter Yunchuan standing upright and crawl back to Xia on your hands and knees. All the way back to the palace. Lu Shi didn't utter a single word. He was as silent as a mute. Were it not for the crimson blood staining his knuckles, one might have thought he was dead. I led him back to Fengyi Palace. As I sat upon the main seat, Lu Shi stood stiffly below, his neck rigid. He neither knelt nor left. I raised my chin toward Chen Tao, have the kitchen prepare some food. Chen Tao understood and led the others out of the hall. I narrowed my eyes, studying Lu Shi. Vaguely, I could discern the shadow of his future adult self. The slender youth hadn't fully matured yet. His lines not as smooth as they would be in adulthood, though his spine remained as straight as ever. His peach blossom eyes naturally held a hint of red at the corners, the jet-black pupils staring fixedly at me. His tightly pressed lips, clenched too hard, were crimson as blood. A scrape on his left cheek oozed vivid blood, accentuating the red mole at his temple and adding an alluring charm. Neither male nor female, yet beautiful as a woman. No wonder that reckless Chi-Chio took a liking to him at first glance. I spoke slowly, this palace lacks for no male favorites. Lu Shi's stiff neck relaxed imperceptibly for a moment. I beckoned him calmly, come. Lu Shi hesitated for a long moment before stepping forward. When I reached for his wrist, his discomfort was palpable. He seemed intensely averse to physical contact, yet forced himself to endure it. Visibly uncomfortable. I slowly pried open his tightly clenched fist, causing the barely formed scab to crack open again. Bright red blood soaked into my sleeve hem. Lu Shi instinctively tried to pull his hand back. I lifted my eyelids to glance at him. Don't move. Lu Shi held his wrist stiffly in midair. When had His Highness the Ninth Prince ever been so flustered and restless? I couldn't help but snort derisively, wolf cub. A wolf cub in childhood. A wolf cub grown. TSK. I picked up the handkerchief I'd left on the bedside table before leaving the palace and pressed it against his wound. Smiling, I asked, does it hurt? Lu Shi's face was deathly pale. Finally, he spoke his first words, it doesn't hurt. That stubborn streak of his never changed. I muttered under my breath. Damn stubborn temper. Tightening my grip on the cloth. Don't you feel it? Lu Shi fell silent, clenching his teeth and staring at me expressionless. I tied the embroidered handkerchief into a tight knot, securing his wound. You know it hurts. Next time, don't cut yourself. I released his hand, pinching the bloodstains from my fingertips between my thumb and forefinger. What's your name? Lu Ji stared at the blood on my fingertips and sleeve, took a few steps back, and lowered his head. Lu Ji. Why are you at the Red Sleeve Pavilion? My mother was part of the Red Sleeve Pavilion. I grew up there. When I was 7, she died. I had no choice but to stay and do odd jobs. I never learned anything else. Lu Ji lifted his head to meet my gaze. Expressionless. His tone numb. Does this happen often? I noticed his subtle movements. His fingertips kept fidgeting with the knot in his handkerchief, betraying his unease. So this habit began when he was this young. In my past life, His Highness the Ninth Prince, whether laughing madly, raging, or acting wildly ruthless, would only play with my hair, twirling it absent-mindedly or deliberately, during private moments in bed. Frequently. Lu Ji paused, realizing I was watching his fingertips. He instantly clenched his fists, returning to his rigid, motionless posture. I hummed in acknowledgement. So that's how all those wounds on his body came to be. His Highness disliked anyone assisting him with bathing, even sleeping clad in brocade robes. Only I had ever seen his body. Cold white, smooth as the finest jade, yet crisscrossed with scars. Whip marks, burn marks, and knife scars. Lu Ji said, I'll wash the cloth and return it to you. I raised an eyebrow, meeting his gaze. I am Princess Yunchuan. You should address me as Your Highness. How unusual to hear me referred to by that title from Lu Ji's mouth. When he's in a good mood, he calls himself this servant. When displeased, he sours with this one. Never a straightforward soul. I chuckled. I suppose I've become the one who understands his temperament best. Your Highness. Lu Ji's gaze flickered, avoiding mine entirely, his fingertips absent-mindedly twisting the handkerchief's knot. I leaned back. Since you've addressed me as Your Highness, you shall remain by my side henceforth. You don't strike me as incapable. First, spend a year or 2 training with my personal guards. Then I'll assign you a proper task. Lu Ji looked at me in surprise, his composure breaking for once. But I am the son of a prostitute. His peach blossom eyes held a cold, watery glint as he stared at my sleeve and fingertips, stained with blood. Without reason, I knew exactly what Lu Ji meant. I am the son of a prostitute. My blood is tainted. I lowered my gaze, propping my forehead on my hand. When I looked up again, I met his eyes. I never keep useless men, nor do I rise early for things that bring no profit. Black cat, white cat, whichever catches the mouse is a good cat. Lu Ji stared at me intently, his clenched jaw slowly relaxing. He squeezed his palm, letting layer upon layer of blood soak through the handkerchief and trickle down his fingertips. Your Highness's kindness today, I shall never forget. I waved him away. Lu Ji limped out of the main hall. It suddenly dawned on me that he'd likely been beaten by Chichio's men earlier. Not a single cry of pain escaped him. Rubbing my temples, I found myself unsure. Did I seek Lu Ji for the profit of raising a clever wolf cub? Or because I couldn't bear to part with him? Sister, he won't let me go. Sister, if you die, will he be heartbroken? Sister, since I'm doomed anyway, why don't you go ahead and test the waters for me? The youth clad in the imperial robe embroidered with 9-clawed dragons stared at me. His face bore an innocent expression, yet his gaze was venomous enough to chill the soul. I jolted awake from the dream once more. The disturbance was slight, yet the night watchman at the door still detected it. Lu Ji pushed open the palace doors, candle in hand, his robes frosted with chill. He hurried in, parting the curtains just as I sat up, clad only in thin nightgown. Lu Ji's hand froze mid-motion, After a few seconds, he hastily withdrew it, his eyes and limbs darting about nervously. He knelt on the floor. By candlelight, I saw his jade-like earlobes flush with a suspicious redness. I snorted in amusement, unconcerned by his rude overreach. I pulled back the quilt myself, shifting my legs with a swing, changing my position until my bare feet touched the floor. Your Highness, the floor is cold. Lu Ji, who had been looking down, dared not meet my gaze. He lifted his head, his voice pitifully small. I squinted, yawned, and replied indifferently, "Is that so?" Lu Ji hesitated for a long moment, his ears flushing as he went to fetch my shoes. His skin was exceptionally pale, colder and more delicate than that of ordinary women. Precisely because of this, his lips appeared all the more vividly red, and the faint pink haze around his almond-shaped eyes made one want to tease him again and again. In my past life, who dared to tease the ninth prince? He alone determined the emotions of others. My eyes flickered with mischief. Lu Ji bowed his head, presenting the shoes. I lifted my foot and stepped onto his hand. The icy touch mirrored his very being, impossible to warm. Lu Ji stood frozen. Your Highness, I drawled lazily. Help me put them on. The flush on his earlobes gradually spread to his cheeks. Lu Ji lifted his head to meet my gaze, his eyes darkening. Your Highness, please do not toy with this servant. What nonsense. Hearing this, I couldn't help but laugh until I doubled over. Toy with you? I covered my mouth. I'm being generous not to punish you for insubordination. You're assigned to the secret guard camp. Now explain why you were stationed at my palace gates. How amusing. The ninth prince was quite the character in his youth. Lu Ji faltered, averting his gaze. His long, butterfly wing lashes cast a dense shadow. Your Highness has bestowed kindness upon me. While I serve in the secret guard camp by day, I come to guard your Highness by night. I teased. Learned a few half-baked martial arts tricks? Think you're qualified to serve as a guard now? Your Highness saved me. I shall guard you. Lu Ji pressed his lips together, his eyes darkening. He reached out with his other hand, cradled my foot, and slipped it into the shoe. His fingertips were icy cold. He then offered to put on my other shoe. I studied him, then clicked my tongue. Stubborn as ever, Lu Ji finished lacing the other shoe. His gaze fixed intently on me. He said, I would walk through fire and mountains of blades for your Highness, regardless of life or death. I couldn't help but chuckle. Enough with the grandstanding. I'll remember this. I leaned down and gave his cheek a light pat. Learn more from Chun Tao. The palace protocols are intricate. Don't bring shame upon me in the future. The implication was clear. I intended to keep him by my side. I waved my hand, signaling Lu Ji to withdraw. Before he left, he fixed me with a deep, lingering look, like a lone wolf licking its wounds in solitude. He possessed that primal instinct of beasts, a stubborn, single-minded determination. His jet-black pupils seemed to hold the image of someone he longed to carry back to his den at once. To rise from an obscure eunuch to the 9,000 years who controlled the court in a past life required considerable audacity. And now, merely a child I brought back to the palace, dares to look at me with such eyes. I rose, pacing slowly to the window lattice. I opened a pane, letting the summer breeze carry the cicada's song as it slowly fermented. A white dove cooed, flapping its wings as it landed before the window. Betting small against big? Presumptuous. I snorted in laughter. Yet we are all such overconfident souls, struggling to climb upward, refusing to accept fate easily. In my past life, I lived for my younger brother. This life, I shall live for myself. I sought paper and brush, silently composing a letter, watching the white dove fly far away. Moonlight spilled into the hall, spreading a ghostly glow across the floor. I am truly curious. What secrets do you hold? I murmured, my gaze freezing over inch by inch. My dear younger brother. Half a month passed in a flash. Yet no further whispers reached me. Xing Yuan came to Fini Palace several times to see me, but I fobbed him off each time with excuses of catching a chill and feeling unwell. I pushed away the teacup before me and stretched my limbs. How has Lu Ji been lately? Chun Tao replied. I heard from the spies that he's quite willing to endure hardship. And discipline? I casually picked up a tangerine. How's his training coming along? Chun Tao added. Last time His Highness sent him to the Eastern Factory. He handled the matter with remarkable efficiency. His Highness truly has an eye for talent, he's a man with great potential. I peeled the tangerine, meticulously removing each membrane. Dealing with the Eastern Factory, who ends up at a disadvantage? Chun Tao chuckled. Eunuch Yu of the Eastern Factory took quite a tumble. Word is Lu Ji didn't stop at a few public reprimands, he secretly broke several of Eunuch Yu's ribs. The man's still bedridden, unable to move. A genuine smile touched my lips. Well done. Yu Fu Hao, the East Factory's deputy, was originally my man. I secretly groomed him from the moment he entered the palace, elevating him to deputy commander of the East Factory. Yet human hearts are unpredictable. Half a year later, he secretly defected to the Ninth Prince. The Ninth not only used this to strip me of my authority in the Ministry of Revenue but also cost me many loyal followers and influence. More crucially, this crippling blow indirectly led to my vulnerable position years later. To reclaim power, I climbed into bed with the 9,000, who by then controlled the court. Just as these thoughts crossed my mind, the chamber doors creaked open. Speak of the devil. Your Highness. The investigation you requested has yielded results. The voice of the adolescent, still in the throes of puberty, was hoarse. Lu Ji knelt on the floor, holding a tray high. I couldn't make out his expression. I took the letters from the tray and examined them one by one. My grip tightened again and again. In the end, I couldn't hold back and crumpled all the letters into a ball. I lowered my gaze, my expression cold and grim. Lu Ji murmured softly, Xing Yuan is so treacherous and heartless. Does your Highness wish to kill him? Seeing him like this, I found it amusing. Perhaps it was from my past life, constantly clashing with the Ninth Prince, that seeing him now made me want to tease him. My voice was cool. Look up. Come here. Lu Ji raised his head at my command, setting down the tray before rising and approaching, unusually obedient and compliant. I leaned forward, my fingertip catching his chin, forcing his head to tilt back further. The freshly painted vermilion nail polish, a vivid crimson, traced downward, finally resting on his delicate Adam's apple. The scarlet against the cool white skin sparked an inexplicable, suggestive tension. The youth grew quickly. Though he'd only been in the palace for a little over a month, he shot up faster than a bamboo shoot. One could already glimpse his slender frame and well-defined contours. My other hand pulled his shoulder closer, forcing him to meet my gaze. The tension beneath his robe stirred sinful thoughts. As I tugged him, Lu Ji stumbled back 2 steps, his body lowering until his beautifully shaped lips were mere inches from mine. I pressed my fingertip against his Adam's apple, tilting my face to brush a warm breath against the 9,000 years unspoken, sensitive ear. I murmured softly, that is this palace's younger brother. The name of the crown prince of Yunchuan Kingdom, dare you? A mere servant. Utter it? Have you swallowed your manners whole? I chuckled softly, pushing him away before folding my arms, watching him with leisurely composure. Lu Ji's flushed face instantly drained of color. His peach blossom eyes, once veiled in mist, snapped clear, glaring at me with the stubborn ferocity of a wolf cub. First, I giggled softly. Then my laughter grew louder, until tears welled in my eyes. I longed to ask the once mighty ninth prince of the previous life, how could you possibly treat me as your personal possession and throw a tantrum after I saved your life? Still so young, his wolfish ambitions and deep desires were written plainly across his face. But I didn't ask. I have only one younger brother, Xing Yuan. Even if he is unambitious and secretly nurtures his own followers behind my back, could I possibly kill the very person who is my support? I gave him a meaningful look. My words were half truth, half joke, merely teasing him. Truthfully, I couldn't bring myself to kill Xing Yuan for momentary satisfaction. I merely wanted to see what the 9,000 years, still a young wolf cub, would say. Lu Xi's Adam's apple bobbed twice. This servant will be your highness's support. I finally burst into laughter. With you? Lu Xi clenched his fists, veins bulging faintly on his knuckles. His gaze fierce and focused. Yes. This servant will be your highness's support, he added. Summer winds rattled the bells at the eaves. My laughter faded into silence. My hand reached out to touch his waist. The youth's slender waist held astonishing power. Yet now it trembled slightly beneath my palm. I hooked my fingers around his sash, my fingertips tracing the seam between the sash and his clothing. My gaze locked onto his face, refusing to miss a single flicker of expression, until I found what I sought. I held the handkerchief in my palm, turning it over twice, washed quite clean. I gave it a shake, the fluttering fabric concealing the turmoil I couldn't control in my eyes. I tossed the handkerchief back to him, watching his panicked grab. I curved my lips. If you want something, fight for it yourself. Until you have enough power. Hide your little schemes well. I certainly don't want rumors spreading one day that I'm keeping a male favorite. You wouldn't want to be my male favorite either, would you? I beckoned him closer once more, leaning forward. I stared at him for a long moment, watching the ambition in his eyes grow ever more intense. My reflection filled his dark, weathered pupils, my lips a vivid red. I couldn't help but sigh, leaning in closer still. I bit his earlobe, leaving a crimson mark. You may wish to. I do not. Lu Xi's hoarse voice brimmed with restraint. This servant does not wish to. He repeated, this servant will be your highness's support. Satisfied, I traced his earlobe with my tongue before sitting upright. Lu Xi gazed at me with devout, almost fanatical intensity. Were the 9,000 years of my past life to see him in such a shameful state, he might well tear him apart in a fit of rage. Propping my chin, I said sweetly, very well. This palace awaits. Lu Xi was Lu Xi, even without his past life's experiences. The soul of the 9,000 lord still ran through his veins. Chun Tao held the parasol for me. Why trouble your highness to come personally? I glanced up at the blazing midday sun. Curiosity. At the gate of the secret guard camp. I made no sound, merely bending to gently lift the curtain. I peered through the crack. Lu Xi sat on the steps, expressionless, munching on a sugarcane stalk. I was startled for a moment, then watched him with renewed interest. If anyone had told me the imposing ninth prince would be crouched here quietly munching on raw sugarcane, I would never have believed it. Yet there he was, squatting with cheeks puffed out, still retaining some baby fat, unlike his later years with sleek, angular features. There was an unexpected charm to it. The sun beat down fiercely. Lu Xi finished the stalk in a few bites, his cheeks still puffed out. Swallowing, he rose, rubbed his hands together, and headed back inside. I noticed several bright blisters on his fingers. Your Highness, aren't you going in? Chun Tao saw me about to leave and hurried to help me down the steps. Let's go, I said indifferently. There's no point in watching. Little did I know that the moment I stepped out, the door swung open again. Luoxi stared in the direction of the doorway for an eternity, his gaze growing almost vacant. He cautiously sniffed the air, truly like a wolf cub. After standing there blankly for a while, he finally turned back into the room. I had matters to attend to. It was the season when pomegranate blossoms bloomed again. The flowers planted by my mother at the palace gates bloomed fiercely, like flames. My eyes darkened as I stepped toward another hidden chamber within Fini Palace. Fini Palace had two such chambers, one for housing the secret guards, the other for interrogations. As I pushed open the chamber door, the stench of blood and dampness hit me. My expression remained calm, though inside, my blood boiled in waves. In the dim chamber, rows of torture instruments hung neatly by the doorway. A woman hung lifelessly from rings, her body covered in bloodstains. Many of the tortured areas had festered and rotted in the summer heat. Flies buzzed noisily around her. I pulled out a handkerchief to cover my nose, furrowing my brow slightly. Dead? An E emerged from the shadows, silently shaking his head at me. Your Highness. She won't talk. I gave a cold laugh, removed the handkerchief, and took 2 steps forward. Chun Tao gasped, reaching out to stop me. Your Highness. You'll soil your hands. I halted a few paces from Tanxiang. How could I be one to be slaughtered without a fight? Even if they pierced my heart with 10,000 arrows, I'd tear a chunk of flesh from them first. Before my death in my past life, I had no strength to struggle. Only then did I realize my food had been laced with poison. This perfectly aligns with what I taught Xing Yuan: always have a backup plan for everything, ensuring absolute certainty. So he set a double trap, guaranteeing I'd take my last breath before him. I studied Tanxiang with a dark, inscrutable gaze. Only the 2 senior palace maids I trusted could touch my food. At my signal, Dark One splashed a basin of salt water. Jolted awake by excruciating pain, Tanxiang thrashed, her iron shackles clanking loudly. Spill it, I asked with a smile. What secrets have you and my dear little brother been hiding from me? Tanxiang's voice was already hoarse. Madwoman, you'll die a horrible death. For what you've done, you'll burn in the deepest circles of hell. With her last ounce of strength, she spat a mouthful of blood at me. Who are you pitying now? Who are you crying injustice for? My smile didn't waver. I can't promise much, but if you don't confess, I guarantee, I enunciated each word venomously, that you and the Crown Prince will be the first to scout out hell. Those few words seemed to drain Tanxiang's strength. She tilted her head, her eyes glazed over, looking utterly unresponsive. Such loyalty. I clapped my hands in admiration. Had you shown this devotion to me? How could you have ended up like this? I turned away from Tanxiang, no longer looking at her, and coldly ordered in, I see she hasn't suffered enough yet. And he bowed his head in acknowledgement. I didn't leave, but stood at the dark chamber's doorway, watching with interest the pomegranate tree growing beyond the palace walls. Amidst the screams echoing from the chamber, I sighed softly and shook my head. Chun Tao, I asked, in this world, which is more important, what you see with your own eyes, or what remains in your memory? Chun Tao replied respectfully, Your Highness, naturally, what one sees with one's own eyes is more important. Is that so? I pushed open the door, my surging blood already calmed. Having received my order, Dark One showed no mercy. Tanxiang was already a bloody mess, only her pain-filled, darting eyes proving she was still alive. I pulled out the letter I'd crumpled and then smoothed. Dark One forced Tanxiang's head to look at it. She could not speak, but her eyes betrayed her. The shift was subtle, yet that instant of shock and panic was enough. I tucked away the letter, my gaze icy. Do not let her die. Keep her alive for my dear brother to see. Chen Tao bowed her head as she pushed open the chamber door for me. The creaking door let in a sliver of sunlight that stung my eyes painfully. I exhaled a slow, heavy breath, then whipped around with a nervous laugh. I've changed my mind. Serving as someone's dog is still serving. Dare to bark at me, and I'll make your entire family pay with their lives. I, as the elder sister, you must look after your younger brother. Amidst the shadows of green pines and the fragrance of red lotus roots, a woman in imperial robes, her eyes soft and gentle, plucked a pastry with a smile, coaxing the delicate little girl. Mother can no longer protect you. In the dim palace, candles flickered and died one by one. Crackling wicks burned, red tears of wax reduced to ash. The emaciated woman clutched the little girl's hand tightly, her face deathly pale. Live on. You must live on. Another month passed in a flash. I could no longer recall how many times I'd awakened from dreams since my rebirth. After death, past memories are erased. Yet the tangled recollections of 2 lifetimes weighed heavily upon me, a burden far from pleasant. What would I normally do at this hour? Leaning my forehead against my hand, a pair of beautiful almond-shaped eyes surfaced in my memory. But His Highness, ever prone to sarcasm, would likely say, Your Highness. As the saying goes, deep affection shortens life, and extreme wisdom brings injury. Those too clever tend to die young. Why not confide in me instead? I once despised and hated him. Yet looking back on those later years, he was all I had left. Silently, I rose, my bare feet touching the floor tiles. Feeling my way to the table, I poured myself a cup of tea. Afternoon sunlight filtered through the window lattice. Hearing the movement, Chen Tao knocked on the door. Your Highness, are you awake? I responded, Come in. Chen Tao pushed the door open but didn't step inside. Instead, someone else appeared behind her. I glanced at Lu Ji. Chen Tao sensed the tension and closed the door quietly. What is it? I stirred the tea foam and blew on it gently. Lu Ji stared at me intently. I'd always found his gaze predatory, like a wolf or a tiger, and he hadn't toned it down since our last conversation. Just as I was about to speak, Lu Ji suddenly knelt down with a thud. The youth was already thin, and the dull thud of his kneecaps hitting the floor sounded painful. The carving between my brows deepened involuntarily. Lu Ji spoke slowly, enunciating each word. Your servant wishes to go to the frontier. You're well informed. I sipped my tea again, sighed, and shook my head. Why? Barbarian tribes have been raiding our borders lately. The days of Yunchuan Kingdom are numbered. His sunken, dark eyes held a predatory ferocity. The prince said, if you want something, go fight for it yourself. I slammed down the teacup, yanked his collar, and forced him forward. I didn't flinch at the savage glint in his eyes. I merely curved my lips into a faint smile. Very well. We've always been cut from the same cloth. We never wait for others to dictate our fate. What we desire, we fight for, by any means necessary. I released my grip. Lu Ji remained leaning forward, even taking a few more steps as if a caged beast had been unleashed. Your Highness. I pressed a kiss to his forehead, light as a dragonfly's touch. Fleeting and gone, ignoring his startled panic. 2 slender, pale fingers pressed together against his lips, blurring the line between the crimson tint of his own lips and the deeper shade of the lipstick. I wouldn't let him say more. I laughed heartily. Your Highness. I'll wait for your return. Lu Ji stared at me, as if trying to pierce through me. The earlier shock had vanished. His lashes lowered, concealing his gaze. After a moment's thought, he swiftly opened his mouth and bit me. I hissed in pain, pulling my hand back. I saw a red mark. You're a dog. You never change. When I looked up again, Lu Xi was running his tongue slowly over his teeth and lips, savoring the taste. The once majestic ninth prince from my past life now lay prostrate at my feet, his wolf-like gaze fixed on me as if he intended to skin me alive, tear me apart, and devour me whole. I gave him a kick, neither light nor heavy, and chuckled. What do you think? Is it better to call you a wolf cub or a dog pup? Lu Xi's voice was hoarse and low. His Adam's apple slid twice, glistening in the light, as if he were thirsty, or perhaps suppressing something. He said, "As long as your highness likes it, anything is fine." His Excellency had always acted with lightning speed. Even as a youth, when told to go to the border, he'd pack a small bundle the very next day. When bidding me farewell, the boy left only a stubborn back as he rode away, refusing to glance back at the city gate once. The scorching summer heat wilted the leaves and cracked the blue bricks. Chun Tao, seemingly holding back for a long time, finally snapped. After learning etiquette for so long, he still acts so aloof. What on earth did your highness see in him? If I were to mold him into a perfect sphere, smoothing out every sharp edge, then I would truly be blind. I scoffed, flicked my sleeve, and left. All suffering in this world stems from one's own inadequacy. He was in a hurry. I leisurely stepped into the palanquin, drew the curtains, and returned to Fini Palace. Stepping down, I spotted Xing Yuan peering left and right at the palace gates from afar. Behind him, the chief eunuch pleaded earnestly, "Your Highness, please enter. It's scorching out here, you might suffer heat stroke." "Ah, Princess, you're finally back." Yi Gonggong spotted me instantly and hurriedly reported, "His Highness has been waiting outside for half an hour." No matter what I said, he wouldn't listen. I shot him a glance, a faint smile playing on my lips. Can't even persuade him over such a trivial matter? Useless dog of a servant. What good are you? Yi Gonggong's smiling face froze for a moment before he sheepishly apologized. I couldn't be bothered with this old fool's theatrics. But Xing Yuan spoke up, sounding sullen. His clothes were soaked through with sweat, clearly not an act, and he looked utterly aggrieved. "But what did I do to upset you? Sister? You haven't even seen me lately." I motioned for Chun Tao to fetch a handkerchief to wipe his brow. I smiled gently. "How could that be? Come in, little brother. You weren't feeling well the other day. I feared you might pass on your illness to him." Chun Tao smiled as she wiped the fine sweat from Xing Yuan's forehead. "Our Highness has been thinking of the Crown Prince. He wanted to visit the moment he recovered. But who knew they'd be on the same wavelength? Isn't this perfect timing? I've just made some almond pudding to beat the heat. It's chilling in the well water now. Your Highness, please come in." As I stepped into Fini Palace, Chun Tao deftly pushed aside Yi Gonggong and personally supported Xing Yuan, fanning him. Her attitude toward Xing Yuan was no different from before. "Where is Sister Tanxiang?" After settling down and cooling off for a moment, Xing Yuan couldn't help but ask. Chun Tao brought in 2 bowls of almond pudding and bowed to withdraw. I scooped a spoonful and smiled. "Look at that flushed face, is it from the heat or embarrassment?" Xing Yuan stammered. His face flushed crimson. "Sister always knows how to tease me." His demeanor was utterly natural, whether the hesitant blush of a young man's first stirrings or the unspoken dependence on his elder sister, it all flowed seamlessly. I studied him unobtrusively for a long while, realizing that falling for him in my past life was not in vain. However foolish it seemed in the grand scheme of things. Tanxiang is about my age. I once regarded her as a confidante. When Xing Yuan developed feelings for her, I didn't stand in their way. I just never imagined they could put on such a convincing act right under my nose. I'll admit to being blind to what was happening right before my eyes. All right. No more teasing. She was handling matters for this palace recently and has just returned. As for you, consider your age. It's time you had a concubine. Xingyuan is turning 15 this year, the age when one should have a concubine. Our mother passed away early. So your elder sister has made arrangements for you. Tanxiang. The curtain lifted at the sound of her voice. A woman adorned in gold and jade, her cheeks rosy, peered timidly through the opening. I curved my lips. Your elder sister was indeed preparing to send her to you. Little did I expect you to arrive first. Xingyuan's spoon halted midair, the porcelain utensil clinking sharply against the bowl's rim. His expression remained unchanged, though he lowered his eyes. His voice carried a hint of joy. Thank you, elder sister. I scooped a spoonful of almond pudding. Sweet, sticky candied fruit clung to my teeth. I licked my cheek with my tongue, a genuine laugh bubbling up from my throat. If you like it, sister will pick out a few more for you another day. Xingyuan looked up, a hint of bashfulness in his eyes. Sister Tanxiang is enough. I merely smiled without reply, changing the subject to brush the remark aside. As Xingyuan escorted Tanxiang out of Funi Palace, Tanxiang stole a glance at me. I picked up a piece of dried fruit from the tray, rolling it between my fingertips, pretending not to notice. Once they were out of sight, Chun Tao closed the door. The sun-dried plum rolled clumsily into the dust. My hand remained poised as if still tossing something. This plum won't be eaten. I'll send it to Tanxiang's family another day. They'd probably appreciate it more. Yes, Your Highness. Chun Tao nodded. After a moment's hesitation, she continued. Before the secret meeting with Tanxiang's family, I discovered that it was the Qin family who had been secretly manipulating them. I wiped my fingertips leisurely. No wonder. Tanxiang was actually quite filial. A flicker of murderous intent passed through Chun Tao's eyes. Tanxiang was one thing, but the Qin family and Your Highness are bound by blood. How could they betray you so? I held back a cold smile. And if they weren't? 10. A year passed in the blink of an eye. Aside from Lu Xi's repeated letters reporting military victories, there was little else worth mentioning. Ever since I placed Tanxiang by Xingyuan's side, I hadn't made a move for a long time, maintaining my outwardly cheerful demeanor. With the realm now divided into 6 parts, I had already elevated Xingyuan to the position of Crown Prince of Yunchuan before my rebirth. To suddenly target Xingyuan now would only leave me severely weakened. What is owed to me, I shall reclaim, sooner or later. It is merely a matter of time. I remain the affectionate Princess Zhaoyang to my younger brother. Yet in certain matters, I withdraw without a trace, keeping my hands clean. As my 18th birthday approached, I sat in the pavilion at the lake's center, leisurely watching egrets wade through the water, sipping a cup of snow pine tea, utterly at ease. Directly across from the pavilion stood a desolate palace. I gazed into the distance, my expression darkening. I had visited that palace recently. It was utterly decayed, showing no signs of habitation. Only on the wall beside the bed were a few words carved haphazardly. Deep affection. Profound affection. I sipped the tea, its bitterness making my tongue tingle, momentarily distracting me. What Lu Xi uncovered for me was far less sordid than I had imagined. It largely matched my suspicions. I was not the Empress's biological daughter. My birth mother was a woman from outside the palace, surnamed Chu, brought back during an imperial tour. The favored concubine Chu never imagined her deeply devoted lover would be a foolish emperor obsessed with the 3,000 beauties of the harem. Her disappointment was profound. Her fiery temperament soon cost her favor. The emperor never meddled in the scheming for attention within the harem. Like many beauties who enjoyed imperial favor for a single night, she withered away within the palace walls. After giving birth to me, she passed away. The empress, frail and childless from miscarriages, treated me as her own daughter when I was born. Growing up, I saw how deeply the empress cherished me. No one ever mentioned the truth. And I never suspected. That thin veil of truth became the greatest mistake of my past life. It wasn't the worst outcome, but it felt worse than the worst. How could I hate? How could I hate the Empress? Who mended my clothes when I was cold, kept vigil by my bedside when I was ill, who did more for me than my own birth mother. Bitterness filled my mouth, a lump choking my throat. The sun sank westward. White egrets flapped their wings, splashing water and squawking wildly. My heart was no longer in admiring the scenery. I rose and returned to Feni Palace. Chun Tao secured the palace doors, then approached with a bow, presenting a letter. Your Highness. Shall we proceed with the arrangements for the birthday banquet as previously discussed? I broke the wax seal and unfolded the paper. A faint scent of beacon smoke wafted from the ink. The handwriting bold and unrestrained, its arrogance impossible to conceal. I scanned it rapidly, then crumpled the paper into a ball and tossed it aside. Chun Tao looked puzzled. I was irritable, only coldly laughing. He's back. And he's becoming more and more ignorant of protocol. Between the lines, the wolf cub begged for rewards, his messy script overflowing with agonizing longing. Such audacity, such disregard for propriety. Princess Zhaoyang's 18th birthday banquet was grand and boisterous, even drawing the eldest prince of Xia Kingdom to offer congratulations in person. My father, the emperor, whose illness grew worse by the day, forced himself to endure the first half of the festivities. Host and guests reveled in mutual delight, the atmosphere warm and harmonious. Yet, looking around, the entire hall was filled with hidden agendas and scheming. I paced to the pavilion in the lake's center, catching the breeze to sober up. Just as I was about to leave, a sudden, heavy pull at my waist followed by a startled cry threw me off balance, sending me crashing heavily into the lake. The autumn waters held a chill, soaking through my elaborate court robes. A poor swimmer, and still tipsy, I choked on several mouthfuls of water, thrashing on the surface. I drifted further from shore, my hairpin loosening and my hair scattering wildly. Someone! Princess Zhaoyang has fallen into the lake. What are you standing around for? Go save your sister! Xing Yuan's frantic voice echoed from afar. Amidst the maidservants' shrieks and the chaotic clamor of the crowd, the 2 splashes into the water seemed particularly insignificant. Soon, I could no longer thrash about, and my body began to sink, weighed down by the heavy, waterlogged fabric, just as I couldn't hold my breath any longer. A pair of strong hands clamped around my waist, hauling me upward. Ice cold. Soft lips descended, passing 2 breaths into me. I tried to open my eyes, but the water pressed down on my eyelids. I could only vaguely make out the outline of a pair of beautiful eyes. I pounded the attacker frantically, murderous intent flaring, until his kiss changed. He pried open my jaw and bit down on my tongue, hard enough to hurt, yet not too hard. The pain made my grip on his shoulders loosen slightly. He wrapped his arms around my waist and pulled us both to the surface. Instinctively, I clung to his shoulders, using his strength to stay afloat. After gasping for several deep breaths, I opened my eyes to find us already far from shore. No one was around, only moonlight danced across the rippling lake surface. Your Highness. A deep, magnetic voice spoke, laced with obvious mockery. Why do you still show such disregard for your own body? I stared fixedly at the figure approaching, my arms still clinging to his shoulders. Suddenly, I laughed and pulled one hand free to shake it. Smack! I delivered a hard slap to Lu Xi's face. My expression turned cold as I demanded, "Who are you?" He turned his face away, 2 sickly chuckles escaping his lips. His almond-shaped eyes naturally held a hint of crimson. Droplets of water trickled down his smooth forehead, glinting coldly in the moonlight, tracing a path from his brow to his sharply defined jawline. Lu Xi extended his scarlet tongue, licking the even redder corner of his lips. He resembled a seductive specter from the lake, a demon crawling out of the writhing hell, luring people to sink with him. I too wanted to ask His Highness. But was he still that same heartless Princess Zhao Yang? I narrowed my eyes. This wasn't the 17-year-old Lu Ji. This was the 9,000 years from my past life. I had no time to ponder why he'd been reborn, nor did I care when he'd returned. My hand slid to his lower abdomen, squeezing hard until a muffled groan escaped him. I released the pressure, then ground my fingers against him lightly, watching as desire ignited in Lu Ji's jet-black eyes. "Do you still doubt my cruelty, Lord 9000? I asked, my voice laced with malice. The icy lake water soaked through 9 layers of gauze. Yet I stared at Lu Ji without flinching. Lu Ji stared back. After a long moment, he nudged the soft flesh by his jaw with his tongue and chuckled. "Your Highness, I'm merely concerned for you." Lu Ji wrapped his arm around me, pulling me close. The heat radiating from the youth, like a furnace, washed over me, warming the chill that had seeped deep into my bones. "The 9000 Lord shows concern?" I scoffed, my eyes unreadable. "Naturally. He's not as ruthless as your Highness, risking his own life for something he doesn't understand." Lu Ji gripped my waist. "If your Highness hadn't willingly chosen this path, who could have schemed against him?" I clicked my tongue. He'd seen right through me. Father was gravely ill. In my past life, he would pass away within half a year from this point. These 6 months, I couldn't evade many matters. Staying in the open would only weaken my own power to benefit others, something I refused to do. So retreating into the shadows, feigning convalescence while investigating a pretext to avoid affairs, was the best choice. Drowning on my birthday to trigger an illness, that excuse was more than sufficient. It was merely self-staged. Hardly risking my life, just needing to make it convincing. The underworld had already prepared men to rescue me, but that wolf cub beat them to it. Now he's still making snide remarks. I patted Lu Ji's cheek, then let my hand drift downward, finally pausing to tap his chest. Lu Ji's breathing grew heavy, his dark eyes fixed intently on me. I smiled sweetly and said, "My dear younger brother could do it." Lu Ji lowered his gaze. "Your Highness doesn't wish to know what happened afterward? Or why he schemed against you?" His eyes lingered on my hand, and he licked his lips. The night breeze brushed against him, raising a faint goosebump on his cold, smooth skin. His Adam's apple, more pronounced and exquisite, beckoned, tempting one to bite, to take a bite. In a rare moment of good humor, I played along. Naturally I do. Lu Ji's Adam's apple bobbed, his gaze shifting slightly as his voice grew hoarse, smoldering with hidden fire. "Kiss me, Your Highness, and I shall tell you." I withdrew my hand and chuckled. "If you won't say, then so be it. Whatever your Highness wishes to know, this servant shall tell." He grasped my hand with desperate urgency, pressing it back against his chest, now burning hotter than before. "Tell me everything." Lu Ji's heart pounded with such force it gave me the illusion that if I held a knife to him now, demanding he carve out his own heart, he would do so without hesitation. My smile faded. The 9th prince would never act this way. At least not with such raw sincerity when I was alive in my past life. I withdrew my hand again, effortlessly catching the sudden fury rising in his eyes. My arms wrapped around his neck, holding him close. I pressed a silent kiss to his Adam's apple. His body trembled slightly. The next instant, one hand tightened fiercely around my waist while the other seized my jaw, forcing his lips onto mine with brutal force. It wasn't a kiss, more like a beast's savage bite. A fierce and violent declaration of ownership and, "After your Highness passed, I have not fared well." Lu Ji's eyes, usually stubborn, brimmed with sorrow and supplication. Your Highness, I have not fared well. The once capricious 9,000 years shed all his hardness now. Like a lone wolf lost from its pack, wandering solitary beneath the moon. My heart ached dully from his 2 words, I have not fared well. Lu Ji kissed my eyes, touching and withdrawing in an instant. His much rougher fingertips suddenly brushed my tear-stained corner. Your Highness, don't cry. Tears streamed down my face. Plop plop, falling into the lake, sending out ripples. I tried to speak, only to find my voice suddenly gone. I have cried twice in my life. The first time was when my mother passed away, the second was when I willingly climbed into the bed of the 9,000-year-old. Spending a night of passion. How could I, the esteemed Princess Zhaoyang of Yunchuan, cry so pitifully? Ripples still spread across the lake's surface. Lu Ji led me to the pavilion at the lake's center. He undid his garments, leaving only a black undershirt, then wrapped me layer by layer in his outer robe, still carrying the scent of the beacon fires. Lu Ji embraced me from behind, shielding me from the biting wind. Nestled in his embrace, warmth flowed endlessly from his back. Whispering into my ear, he murmured, it's all over now. Your Highness, the past is but a dream, a fleeting illusion. I tilted my head back, tears finally flowing freely. Through blurred vision, I saw Lu Ji's sharp jawline. Rebirth is profoundly mysterious. In my past life, countless unspoken thoughts and worries weighed upon me. In this life, I walk alone, a lonely soul unable to find those from the past. I am Princess Zhaoyang of Yunchuan, yet I am also flesh and blood. I am haunted by nightmares where memories overlap, questioning my own fragility in the dead of night. I cannot tell if it is I who am unworthy, or the world itself. I have never spoken of this to others, nor have I ever shown the slightest weakness. But now, only the 9,000 years remains by my side. He says he has not fared well since my death. All it takes is the slightest straw to break the dam of emotions. Lu Ji held me tighter and tighter. He lowered his head to meet mine, his dark pupils dotted with starlight. So, Your Highness, do you know how happy I was when I awoke and found you had come for me so early? His kisses fell again, soft and frequent, across my face. A light peck, as if he'd found a long-lost treasure. My voice raspy. I murmured, Lu Ji, your servant is here. This was the first time I'd ever called him by name. I'd always mocked Lu Ji for calling himself your servant when pleased, and switching to the sullen this one when displeased. Yet I was no different, I'd always addressed him as His Excellency. Distant and cold. Do you truly care for me? I gripped his collar tightly. His inner robe pulled down to reveal the youth's pale collarbone. Having never spoken such words of vulnerability in 2 lifetimes, I momentarily forgot my formal address. Lu Ji brushed his fingers to my mouth, slowly kneading the pearl of my lip. He said, Your Highness, this servant once did not believe that longing could be resolved. Now I believe it. All that talk of dying for pride, living in agony, it's for those who've never tasted death. He sighed deeply. The proud head of His Highness 9,000 bowed, melting all his grimness into a pool of tenderness within his peach blossom eyes. I closed my eyes, letting him pull me into his embrace, wrapping me in careful tenderness. What's the point of clinging to pride and suffering in life? Those who haven't tasted death. My voice was low, dissipating entirely in the night breeze. Lu Ji, it seems I've grown rather fond of you. The incident of Princess Zhaoyang's drowning caused quite a stir. Several individuals with ulterior motives sought audience at Fengyi Palace, but all were turned away by Chen Tao. As winter approached, Father Emperor's illness worsened, yet he still lingered daily among the beauties of the harem. These past months, the princes have truly shown their true colors, each vying to secure a piece of the throne before Father Emperor's passing. I shut myself away, refusing audiences. Driven to desperation, Xing Yuan finally shed his timid demeanor, clashing fiercely with his brothers until both sides were exhausted. Among them were those coveting the influence Lu Shi had amassed over the past year at the frontier. Clutching tray after tray of documents, I nearly laughed in exasperation. I kicked Lu Shi, who was curled up by my footstool. Did you bring these specifically for me to advise you? Should you marry the daughter of Minister Li or the sister of Minister Lin? Lu Shi seized my bare foot and cradled it in his palm. Your Highness. I merely wished to demonstrate that I too am a sought-after commodity. His words finally made me laugh in exasperation. How could His Highness, reborn after 9,000 years, grow more childish with each lifetime? His rough palm enveloped my delicate, jade-white foot, and a dark fire flared in Lu Shi's eyes. I don't think so. Lu Shi tilted his head back. I long to be by your Highness's side day and night, but I fear your distant, elusive ways. I twisted my foot twice, trying to pull it free, and laughed scornfully. Only you would dare to play coy after getting your way with this palace. Lu Shi clamped down on my foot, pinning it in place. He straightened up, his scorching breath brushing against my neck. Your Highness, I am in high demand. Lu Shi moved like a predator savoring its prey, slow, deliberate, utterly predatory. If your Highness will grant me your favor, I will give you everything. Military power, influence, leverage. He whispered each word like poison, each syllable striking the core of my being. I narrowed my eyes. I should have had you castrated back then. Your Highness. How cruel you are. Lu Shi chuckled lightly, utterly unconcerned. I hooked my arm around his neck, my gaze sharp as a hook. That was the past life. To be so absurd again in this life, what is this? Do you think I still covet the military power and influence of the 9,000 years? Lu Shi gazed at me intently, light tracing every contour of his skin. It is this servant who dared to aspire to your Highness. It is this servant who willingly gave everything, begging for your Highness's mercy. His expression was too earnest, making my heart race. An unfamiliar panic made me turn my head away unnaturally. It is settled. The days spent haphazardly entangled with Lu Shi flew by, and before I knew it, the year drew to a close. As tensions escalated in the former court, my covert faction faced repeated attacks from several imperial princes. With scarce resources, Xia Kingdom and its vassal states grew increasingly envious of the bountiful grain along Yunchuan Kingdom's borders during winter. Ready to strike, it was time for Lu Shi to head to the frontier to consolidate his forces. His Excellency seemed certain I'd yield to persuasion rather than force. Reborn once, I was cunning. Before leaving, I reluctantly haggled for benefits. Finally satisfied, I departed. That night, the air was as cool and thin as water, deep and still. In Fengyi Palace, I broke the wax seal as usual. A single glance at the contents made the words stick in my throat. Chun Tao smiled, seeing His Highness genuinely happy. Yet you wear that expression. I frowned at her, glancing uneasily at the bronze mirror. In the mirror's gleaming surface, a beauty's brows were half furrowed, the smile at her lips not yet retracted, her watery eyes shimmering with rippling light. I tossed the letter aside and snorted coldly. You're such a smart aleck. Chun Tao giggled as she picked up the letter from the floor. Seeing the flush spreading across my cheeks, she quickly made a shushing gesture, her smile still bright. Noticing I was about to write, she lit a small brazier to warm my hands. I twirled the brush tip, dipped it in ink, and began, how is father's health? Considering the time, his life of stupefaction, indulgence in beauty, and empty court ceremonies must be nearing its end. His Majesty rarely heeds the Imperial Medical Bureau. Lately, he's been taking the elixir sent by the Bureau of Astronomy. I'd barely written the characters for Lu Xi when I felt sickened. I crumpled the paper into a ball and burned it without a second thought. Whose man? A covert investigation revealed it was the third prince's man. Chun Tao lowered her eyes, hesitating to speak. Tanxiang brought news. It was the second young master of the Qin family who had secretly arranged for the prescription through several back channels. I picked up the brush again to write His Excellency. But it still felt wrong. Distracted, I remarked. My cousin has quite the nerve. I felt I couldn't write a proper reply. So I simply didn't. Lazy. I tossed the brush aside. My eyes cold. My dear father emperor, among all his sons. Not one wishes him to live. Even the third prince, favored by his beloved consort May, longs for his swift demise. As an emperor, he is senile and incompetent. As a father, he is easily swayed, always heeding whispers from his bedchamber. Those of us without a mother's protection must rely solely on our own abilities to survive. I shook my head gently. My heart had grown utterly cold toward this nominal father in my previous life. Now, I felt only bitter regret. Have Dark One prepare the men, I said, propping my chin on my hand as I gazed out over the palace grounds. I've avoided affairs of state for so long. Once father passes, I must finally meet those beasts and demons. Chun Tao poured tea for me. Your Highness, why not take matters into your own hands? My gaze darkened, and just as I was about to speak, commotion erupted outside. The scent of scorched flesh wafted in, accompanied by the stern-faced Dark One. Dark One knelt half-bent, his expression icy. Your Highness, the Emperor is gravely ill. The Crown Prince has seized the palace with the remnants of the Qin family and the Black Armor Guards. Chun Tao's hand trembled as she poured tea, spilling droplets across the table. I wiped the water from my wrist without flinching. The next moment, in the silent Phoenix Grace Palace, the sound of clapping echoed with startling clarity. I clapped my hands and sneered coldly. Look at my dear brother, how many more surprises does he have in store that I know nothing of? I lowered my gaze, my expression icy. After baiting him for so long, it's time to reel him in. Outside the Zichin Palace, the scent of blood wafted for miles. Viscous bloodstains trickled down the steps, staining the 24 white jade platforms crimson. Heavy snow had begun falling at some point, melting the scalding blood into small pits in the packed snow. I wore court attire, my makeup meticulously applied. The elaborate, floor-length skirt clashed starkly with the grim, sword-bearing guards standing at attention. Blood stained the hem, saturating the vermilion gauze robe with a deeper, more vivid hue. The fixed stares of the rebels flanking me felt like scraping blades. At the far end of the purple palace entrance stood the head of the Qin family, who should have long since retired to Jiangnan. Behind him stood several of his brothers, each armed with sharp weapons. I gathered the folds of my cloak and smiled. Long time no see, grandfather. Winter has come. The old patriarch of the Qin family stood hunched, his temples frosted white, staring at me for a long moment. He did not speak, nor did I wait for his reply. Only as I passed by him did the old man murmur softly, as if in a dream, the little girl Yun spoke of has grown so tall. I raised an eyebrow. At the mention of a Yun, a cold laugh escaped me, whether it's my mother or myself. In grandfather's eyes, aren't we both inferior to Xing Yuan? In my previous life, the 9,000 years had already stepped forward at this moment. Even with the Qin family's scheming, they couldn't gain an advantage over Lu Ji. After the Qin family patriarch passed away, the younger generation possessed ambition but lacked capability. Wasn't it I who single-handedly secured Xing Yuan's position as crown prince and helped my dear younger brother ascend the throne? Yet as Yunchuan kingdom declined, caught in the turmoil of warring small states, the utterly rotten court had no one fit for duty. It was the 9,000-year-old who took command and led the campaigns. The 9,000, already a thorn in the side, seized full military authority, becoming the de facto supreme ruler. Consumed by suspicion, Xingyuan grew paranoid, fearing the 9,000 would overthrow him upon returning to the palace. Xingyuan concealed this from me, colluding with the Ministry of Revenue and the Eastern Factory to deliberately delay supplies. Yet his scheme was both foolish and treacherous. Allowing the Xia kingdom to exploit the opening, their forces swept through like a bamboo stalk being split, advancing all the way to the city gates. As the nation crumbled, Lu Ji returned in a blaze of glory. Knowing his treachery exposed and that the 9,000 lord would show him no mercy, Xingyuan forced me onto the city walls. He demanded that I, his elder sister, scout the situation for him. All these past events remain vividly etched in my memory. In this life, the 9th prince no longer wields the power of life and death. Only the rising star, the young General Liu, remains, with no obstacles left and seeing me fall from grace. Having lost control of power, they show no inclination to even pretend courtesy toward me for a single moment. Brushing my sleeves, I avoided the old Qin patriarch's glare and strode straight toward the inner chambers of the purple forbidden palace. Xingyuan stood with hands clasped behind his back before the imperial dragon bed, his silhouette shrouded in layers of drapery. The marble tiles of the outer hall, normally polished to a mirror-like shine, were now strewn with severed limbs and shattered remains. The 3rd prince's head, eyes still wide open in death, had been kicked by someone and rolled clattering into a corner. I walked forward calmly, leaving Chen Tao behind in the outer hall. The deeper I entered the inner chambers, the more familiar faces I encountered. The 2nd prince, who died by my hand in my past life, the 4th prince, whom I framed and sent to the Supreme Court, the 5th prince, whose power I seized and confined to his residence, the favored consort Mei, the arrogant 2nd princess. Now, they lay either decapitated by a single stroke or stabbed multiple times. I never knew humans could bleed so profusely, pooling into a vast, crimson ocean that turned my stomach. "Sister," he said, his voice shedding its adolescent hoarseness, tinged with a hint of delight. "I invited them all. Only you came of your own accord." I lifted the curtain and watched Xingyuan coldly, his hands behind his back. He smiled sweetly, his apricot yellow crown prince's robe stained with blood. I pulled back the quilt myself and checked the breath of the person on the bed. Withdrawing my hand, I wiped it on a handkerchief. "I remember. On the day Mother gave birth to you, it was a rare cool day in summer. A frail woman held a scroll of text, a single oil lamp flickering beside her. Amidst the clamor of cicadas, she softly read tales from the history books to me, her voice occasionally interrupted by coughs. She touched her swollen belly with happiness, taking my small hand and placing it upon it. "Ai," she whispered, "Mother wants to give you a little sister. That way, even if Mother..." The queen, gentle as jade, stopped abruptly. Instead, she patted my head. "You two will be companions from now on. Mother will rest easy. Ai will surely be a good sister." Frail and often ill, she was sent by her family to the palace to struggle through life. Amidst the muddy chaos of the harem, she never harmed anyone. Her only regret was leaving this world too soon. Unable to see her 2 children grow up, the melodious Jiangnan song's mother sang to me fade in my memory. I hummed the tune off-key, my vision blurring to the blood-soaked figure of Crown Prince Xingyuan. I laughed. She was so foolish, so kind. She never imagined you were unworthy of being her child. The air froze in that moment. All the innocence, delight, and weakness Xingyuan had feigned were ripped away. He screamed at me, "Sister, why couldn't you be a little more foolish?" His voice cracked with accusation. "Sister, why do you always look at me like I'm a child? Sister," even grandfather said it, Why aren't you Mother Empress's own child? Why aren't you a son? I remained silent amid his accusations. After a long, agonizing silence, long enough for his eyes to turn bloodshot and his face to contort into a savage grimace as he raised the dagger, I stepped back. My voice was measured, neither soft nor harsh, yet I once exhausted every thought for you. Xing Yuan's movements froze. But when our maternal grandfather let me in, he abandoned me. For the sake of our mother's dying wish, to let her rest in peace. I truly cherished Xing Yuan with every fiber of my being. That tiny, soft little brother who held my hand and sweetly called me sister, I lived for him. Recklessly, without reservation. A woman like me, if left alone, would rather shatter than crawl into the bed of the 9,000 years. Alas. All this boils down to one phrase: I once exhausted every effort. Xing Yuan stared at me with unnerving intensity. Sister, you only see me as a failure, a useless failure incapable of anything. When Mother was alive, she only cherished you. She never loved me. You only pity me, feel sorry for me. You never tell me anything. You treat me like a puppet. You only love power. If you knew I wasn't your real brother, you'd kill me without a second thought. You never. His voice abruptly halted. The dagger in his hand plunged toward my left shoulder. Had I not dodged in time, it would have pierced my heart with deadly precision. Xing Yuan instinctively released his grip, shaking his head as if awakening from a dream, not daring to move the dagger an inch. I should have killed you long ago. I gripped the dagger, expressionless as I pulled the blade free. Spattered blood splashed across his face, like a fledgling bird that thought it had grown wings. He frantically wiped his face in panic. Outside the long silent Purple Chin Palace, clamor erupted once more, the incessant sounds of close combat and slaughter. Gripping the dagger, I advanced step by step toward Xing Yuan, forcing him to retreat continuously. Tan Xiang. Tan Xiang. His voice trembled as he called out to Tan Xiang, the former Qin family spy left by my side, now the only person in the Purple Chin Palace with martial arts training. Tan Xiang stepped out of the shadows and knelt before me, bowing once. Xing Yuan stared at me in disbelief. I cornered him, the winding trail of blood from his shoulder stretching from the dragon bed to the wall. A horrifying sight. I leaned down, looking down on him from above. I said it before. You are unworthy of being her child. She risked her life to bear you. I pressed the dagger against his cheek, its sharp edge glinting coldly. She endured 6 long years just to watch you grow. Through every sleepless night of her coughing, while you slept soundly, I was the one who stayed by her side, watching her sew clothes for you day and night. I was not her biological child, yet I willingly called her mother. And you? Sweet, metallic blood dripped onto the floor. My face went pale, and waves of dizziness washed over me. I tapped his face with my dagger, unwilling to see his panic and utter bewilderment. You were right, you'll always be a useless piece of trash. You thought you could scheme against this palace? I insist on making you my puppet. Insist on keeping you a silent fool, watching as I seize power. I shot a cold glance at Tan Xiang. Tan Xiang drew a packet of powder from her sleeve pouch. How eerily similar this scene was. The slaughter outside Xichin Palace gradually ceased. I watched Tan Xiang force-feed the paralysis powder to the limp Xing Yuan. Only when he finally couldn't utter a sound, clutching his wounded shoulder, did I whisper, I won't kill you. What I owed my mother, I've repaid. A life in the past, a scar in this life. I rose, hands clasped behind my back, and called out, Dark One, your servant is here. I whirled around abruptly. Flames leapt skyward, consuming the moonlit frost that blanketed the ground. Blood and fire intertwined, silhouetting the figure approaching, a straight, imposing form. Fox fur trim on the great cloak was heavy with white, even the lowered eyelashes coated in frost and snow. Only the lips remained a deep crimson. He pushed open the gates of Zechen Palace, sweeping swirling snowflakes into the hall like a grand blossoming of pear blossoms. With a flick of his sleeve, the cloak fell away. Lu Ji stood in crimson dragon robes, a fleeting echo of the 9,000 years of old. Your Highness, I have come to rescue you. He curved his lips in a smile, shaking off the wind and snow. Attendants! Lu Ji's smile vanished instantly. His expression turned cold as he dismissed Chun Tao and Tan Xiang, then ordered 2 soldiers to roughly drag the unconscious Xin Yuan out. Seeing my silent nod of consent, Chun Tao bowed cautiously and withdrew. The doors creaked shut. Your Highness. Lu Ji approached me step by step, his tone dangerously sharp. Does nothing I say stop you from doing what you wish? His hand landed on my shoulder. It had intended to fall directly on the wound. Yet midair it abruptly shifted, resting instead upon my collarbone. The icy touch made me flinch involuntarily. Lu Ji lowered his gaze, withdrew his hand, and pressed it against the back of his own neck. He held it there for a long moment before returning it to my equally cold hand. Enveloping my hand in his, he murmured, Your Highness, when you say you like me, is it all just to amuse me? I lowered my head, silent. The wound on my shoulder ached. Lu Ji, hold me. It hurts. I dropped the formal address, my tone softening. The tip of Lu Ji's nose was slightly red, whether from the cold or something else. I couldn't tell. In the dim outer hall of the Purple Palace, only a faint glow from the door illuminated the reddened corners of his eyes. Your Highness, do you know how I died in my previous life? My hand instinctively reached to cover his mouth. He dodged it, whispering softly, beneath the city walls. I watched Your Highness pierced by 1,000 arrows, powerless to help. I could only see Xin Yuan go mad, filled with regret, weeping bitterly. Do you know how much I hated him? I chopped them into pieces and fed them to the dogs. I killed everyone who opposed Your Highness. I carried their corpses to Your Highness's grave. How I longed for Your Highness to look down from above and say to me, Your Excellency, you are truly formidable. A single tear slid from his eye socket, landing on my face. I extended my tongue and tasted its salty, bitter bitterness. I could save nothing. Lu Ji laughed bitterly, tears rolling down his cheeks. So on Your Highness's 22nd birthday. Lu Ji. I tilted my head back, covering his mouth, biting down hard on his tongue, tasting the metallic tang of blood. When he finally fell silent, I released him and asked, Did you see the silk box I sent you? I dared not. He murmured, his voice wavering between tears and laughter. My heart clenched in agony, all caution forgotten. Inside that box lay the sachets Mother embroidered for me before she passed. She said, Ai, if you ever find someone you love, give them these sachets. Mother will watch over you both. Tears rolled down my cheeks. All the grievances and solitary loneliness of these years, past and present, seemed to fade into nothingness. Tears still clung to Lu Ji's long lashes. He pressed a reverent kiss to my brow, his voice trembling almost imperceptibly. Your Highness, I believe there is a cure for longing. I drew a deep breath and gazed into his eyes. Lu Ji, carry me. In my past life, on my 18th birthday, I had already climbed into the bed of the 9,000-year-old. The 9,000-year-old was as unpredictable as the weather, his moods shifting like the clouds. Clad in crimson dragon robes, he was the living Yama of the Yunchuan imperial palace. Every prince and princess sought to curry favor with him, yet none would stoop as low as I did, sacrificing all dignity for power, willingly sharing a bed with a eunuch. I knew well that all suffering in this world stems from one's own inadequacy. Yet I couldn't help but instinctively flee from this shameful bargain. Lu Ji was mad. So was I. I once despised and hated him. Yet looking back on the years we walked side by side, through countless plots and bloodshed, he alone remained who truly knew and understood me. The unspoken stirrings of our hearts and our evenly matched, sharp confrontations all came to an abrupt halt at 19, when 10,000 arrows pierced my heart upon the city wall. I descended into eternal sleep, my eyes heavy with regret and resentment. He lived alone for 3 years. Reborn into this life. I finally believe that in this world, there is a cure for longing. On my 18th birthday in the previous life, by the pavilion in the lake, I defiantly asked him for a birthday gift. I asked if His Majesty, the 9,000 years old, might recite a poem for this humble palace. It was autumn then, with only a light drizzle that soaked through our clothes. I clung to his back, laughing heartily. That laughter was genuine. I shielded him from blades, he took a sword for me. We were never meant to cross paths. Yet fate bound us together in contradiction. We stood drenched in autumn rain, skin pressed against skin. In this life, he is no longer His Majesty the Emperor. Yet I remain Princess Xiaoyang. Outside the Purple Palace, soldiers and secret guards watched in astonishment as General Liu, step by step, carried me away on his back. I clung to his back as deep winter snow fell. Goose-down flakes blanketed our shoulders, icy and cold. We've seen 9 parts of snow, 1 part shared until our hair turns white. Like us, walking together until our hair turns white. My shoulder was wounded, blood dripping onto the snow, blooming like plum blossoms. My face grew paler and paler. Suddenly, I reached out and pressed my hand against his chest. Lu Ji, I said, I want you to die here. How about you give me the world? Lu Ji's smile was sweet. He said, very well, Your Highness. Take my heart now. I slowly released my grip. The wind and snow chilled my hands, so I slipped them beneath his inner robe. His chest, warmer than any furnace, radiated endless heat. You madman, I murmured. Lu Ji laughed. I was not born mad, nor was the 9,000 years born the 9,000 years. Burying my face in his neck, I growled, I want this empire. Agreed, he replied. His yes held not a shred of hesitation. He cared not for titles or glory, willing to become a courtier beneath a woman's skirt, to surrender it all. The path from Sichin Palace to Fini Palace held no lamps, only moonlight dancing with the snowflakes. The wind whistled in my ear, Lu Ji. Lu Ji nodded, brushing snowflakes from his robes. Your servant is here. I'll call you. Your servant has always been here. I nestled contentedly in the hollow of his neck, the exhaustion from blood loss lulling me into a drowsy haze. His Excellency, who once wielded life and death power in a past life, now showed no desire for it in this one. I called again, Lu Ji. Your Highness. Your servant is here. I like you. This servant also cherishes Your Highness. All I desire is Your Highness. Whatever he said afterward blurred in my drowsy mind. I drifted into a deep sleep, unable to hear. His beating heart and the comforting warmth of his back made Lu Ji feel exceptionally reassuring at that moment. Even the chieftains of distant barbarian lands unanimously declared, heaven's mandate must not go unanswered. Ancestral rule cannot be long forsaken, and the 4 seas cannot remain without a sovereign. On the auspicious first day of the year, Yuan ascended the altar with his ministers, receiving the imperial seal and sash. May his reign over Yunchuan bring lasting peace to the 4 seas. From the city tower, I held a golden cup, splashing wine as an offering. Looking out, I saw the vast expanse of Yunchuan's territory, and I would be the true ruler behind the 9-layered pearl curtains. The puppet emperor. Lu Ji embraced me from behind. Your Highness. I curved my lips, turning to nestle into his embrace. The The lingering sunlight cast a brilliant golden glow, enveloping us in warmth. Ice and snow melted, forming icicles that dripped slowly. Lu Ji, your servant is here. Lu Ji, Your Highness? I was just calling you. Your servant is always here. The end.